We say on Friday night, we sing Shalom Aleichem. And we say Shalom Aleichem Malache Hashares Malache Elyon. And then later we say Bayachem L'Shalom Malache Hashalom. What happened to the Malache Hashares? So Shimon Shishar said that he asked his father what his skill was, that he was such an unbelievable peacemaker. He was able to make peace between warring factions all the time. So he asked his father, how do you do it? So his father told him this word. He said, we say Malachi Hasharis, Malachi Elyon, and then we say Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon. What happened to the Malachi Hasharis? So he said, it's very simple. He said, the only way you could be a Malach Hashalom is if first you're a Malach Hasharis. If everybody knows that you have no agenda and you have no vested interest and you're only a Mesharis, then they trust you to make shalom. He said, but if you have an agenda, so two parties are fighting with each other, and now you come, you want to make peace. So the two parties look at you and they say, what's your agenda? I have my agenda, he has his agenda. Now you want to come, we should listen to you. What's your agenda? You also have an agenda. But if you have no agenda and everybody knows you have no agenda, then they listen to you. He said, everybody, Rabbi Shara said, everybody knows that I had no agenda. All the years that I was working for the Klal, he says, there were many times that the Gedolim said I should do something a certain way, and I didn't agree at all. But I knew that Gedolim. I listened to whatever the Gedolim say. So I was completely mavatal my das and my agenda all the time. And that's why they trusted me. A beautiful word.
The problem today is convincing people you have no agenda.
Well, the problem is finding people nowadays that don't have an agenda. It's not easy. It's not easy.
What's in it for me is the common question.
Right. It's very hard.
That's what this year told me.
Unfortunately.
Right. We couldn't find everything on the list. Okay. So we're on Mem Hey Amud Aleph. And we're up to in the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Hey. So this is going on. The Mechaber had said one of the potential problems that you don't have to worry about if you do your Hagala before the Zman Isser, 2 lines on the bottom in the Mechaber said V'chein kedei shelo yitztarech lizaher shelo yanucha mayim erisichasan. If you're doing Hagala before the Zman Isser, you don't have to worry if the water stops boiling. And on that, the Ramah said, Haga achrabim cholkim, many disagree, they say that, what do you mean? You don't have to worry if the water's not boiling. The Ramah says, everybody says if the water's not boiling, the Hagal is worthless. So the Ramah is taking issue with the Mechaber. What do you mean that if it's before the Zman Isser, you don't have to worry if the water's not boiling? Of course you have to worry. So now in this, the Mishnah Berurah says, in Ois Katan Hey, Shelo yanuchu hamayim. What did the Mechaber mean? Ritzainer Loimar, what the Mechaber wants to say is, the Cholzman Sheim Roischim, as long as the water is boiling, Tri Dila Miflat, the keilim that you're kashering is busy giving out its bliyos, V'loi Boli Mimei Hagola, and it's not going to be Ribailea from the Mei Hagola. Ukishenachu mirisichasan, but once the water stops boiling, boli, now it's going to be bailea. So, what the Mechaber meant to say was, if you're kashering after the Zman Isser, you have a problem. Because you're going to take your fork, you're going to throw it into the pot. Now, like the Chavetz Chaim is going to say on Mem Hey Amud Beis, the nature of a pot of boiling water is that when you throw in a keilim, it absorbs heat, and very often that will stop the water from boiling for a moment. So the Mechaber was said, if you're kashering after the Zman Isser, so when the water was boiling, the fork was pilot. It gave out its blias. But now the water stopped boiling. If the water stopped boiling, it's going to be ribailea. So that could be a problem. But if you're kashering before the Zman Isser, then like all these other problems that we said, it's not a problem. Because even if the keilim will be ribailea, it's nice and tam dehetera. So it's not a problem. Now, that's what the Mechaber meant to say. Came along the Ramah, and the Ramah said, Mechaber, I don't understand what you're saying. If you're doing Hagala before the Zman Isser, you don't have to worry if the water's not boiling? Of course you have to worry if the water's not boiling. If the water's not boiling, you're not doing Hagala. It's not, you're not kashering. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cotton vav, ach rabim cholkim. All right, the Ramah was chaylik on the mechaber. Ha'achrayim hisigu al Ramah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, the achrayim are not happy with this Ramah. The gam dasa mechaber keinhu. The Mechaber also agrees that the water has to be boiling in order to accomplish Hagala. The Mechaber also agrees that Hagala is not effective unless the water that you're kashering in is boiling. That's not what the Mechaber meant to say. Ella, the Kosav, what the Mechaber means to say is what I just said in Ice Cotton Hay. The Achar Zmani Surai, if you're kashering after the Zman of Isser Chametz, you can't leave the keilim in the water when the water stops boiling. So, like, if I do Hagala on the 2 days before Pesach, which before the Zman of Isser, so I'll throw keilim into the pot when the water is boiling. I'll let it boil for 2 minutes, then I'll turn off the fire, and I'll leave it there. Right? Wait for the water to cool off, and then I'll take my keilim out. Before the Zman Isser, you could do that. After the Zman Isser, you can't do that. Because if you do that after the Zman Isser, the blias that came out, the chametz, the blias that came out of the keilim are in the water. Now when the water stops boiling, the keilim is going to reabsorb them. So you can't do that after the Zman Isser. Ma'ashein came keilim before the Zman Isser, ain't lachish lazeh. You don't have to worry. Kevin the etzem hagala haya be'eser sichasan, because you accomplished the hagala while the water was boiling. Now you're worried that it's going to be ri by leah? Doesn't matter if it's ri by leah. It's nice and tam bar, nice and tam de'atera. You don't have to worry. Ice cut and Zion. The Ramah said all the poskim say that if the water's not boiling, you can't accomplish Hagala. What the Ramah is saying here is when he says that the water's not boiling, even if you're talking about water that's heated to the degree of yad ledes, where your hand would jump back from it, Kolzman she'ena mayim malim resicha, as long as the water is not bubbling, as long as it's not boiling, einam maflitim, that water is not hot enough to make the keilim that you're kashering be pilot their blias. Okay, now we go to the top of Memheim and Beis in the Ramah. Let's just finish off the words of the Ramah. Al kain yesh li zayar afilu kainim zman isurai. So the Ramah says, certainly, even if you're kashering before the zman of Isser, you have to be careful, shalayanuchu mirisichasan kolzman shemagil, that the water should not lose its temperature and should not stop its boiling while you're doing Hagala. Now, this does not mean what it sounds like literally, like the Mishnah Berurah is going to explain. What the Ramah over here means is not that you have to be, not that before the Zman of Isser, you have to make sure that the water never stops boiling. If the water's boiling when you throw the keilim in, and then later on the water stops boiling, that's fine if you're doing it before the Zman of Isser. What the Ramah means to say is what you have to make sure of, sometimes somebody boils up a pot of water to do Hagala. He throws in 5 spoons and the water is boiling. After he throws in 10 spoons already, the water stops boiling. But this person's not paying any attention. He throws in spoon number 11, spoon number 12, and spoon number 13, and spoon number 14, and spoon number 15, and he thinks he's kashering them. And he doesn't reheat the water. He doesn't let the water come back up to boiling. So these keilim, he never kashered. He never kashered these keilim, because you didn't throw them into boiling water. So therefore, says the Ramah, when you're busy doing your kashering, make sure that the water doesn't drop below the boiling point, and now you're throwing in keilim and you're never going to kasher them. If the water temperature does go down, make sure you leave everything in there long enough that the water should stop boiling again. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah inside. It's ches. Kolzman shemagil. As long as you're doing Hagala. Ritzayna Loimar, what the Ramah wants to say is, Shahayoira Hagadola, the large pot, Shemanichim ba keilim kol shalahagil, that you're constantly throwing keilim in order to do the Hagala. Don't let the water stop boiling as long as you're still throwing in keilim to do Hagala. Because if you throw in a keli after the water starts boiling and you don't reheat the water and get it to boiling again, ein oila Hagala. That you're not going to accomplish hagola on that keli. Unless you leave that keli in long enough that the water reheats and starts to boil again. The nature of water is that it stops its boiling as you throw in cold keilim that you want to do hagola on. It's going to stop boiling. Therefore, so for each keli, you have to wait until the water starts boiling again. It's got to be in there while the water is boiling to accomplish hagola. And you have to warn people who do hagola that they should understand this. A lot of them are very makel. And they just keep throwing in keilim. And they don't bother paying attention whether or not the water is really boiling. But the Chavetz Chaim says at least you could be malamed schus on them. What commonly do people do hagola on? For the most part, the keilim that they're doing hagola on are not really things that they use in a kli rishon. They're usually things like plates that they pour stuff onto from a kli rishon. So it's usually irui. And really, al pi'ikar adin, a keli that you only use with irui, really, if you do hagola with such a keli with mayim that's yad seledes, that hagola is really effective me'ikar adin. Okay, however, but copper plates, which we said you could use as the lid of a pot, or big, let's say, mixing spoons that you stick into a pot, to a kli rishon ala eish. It would seem that hagolah shouldn't even work b'di'evet for such keilim. And you would have to do hagolah over again if they never were in boiling water. However, as far as what happens if you kashered a keli, that you threw it in to do hagolah and the water wasn't boiling, and now you used this keli on Pesach, are you going to answer the food that you used it with? Over there in prima godim is mesupik. And it would seem, at least says the Chavetz Chaim, that if the keli that you're dealing with, it's no longer a me'es la'es of chametz, it's not a ben yoymai of chametz, yesh l'tzaded lahakel, you could be mekel. The kasher achrayim say the nachayin laham ideitz al hagolah. When you're doing hagolah, you should have somebody standing there, Baal Torah, who's a Talmud Chacham, habaki b'dinei hagolah, who knows the dinim of hagolah. Don't just give it over to stam a person to do. Make sure there's somebody there who knows what he's doing. This always reminds me when I was in the meat business. So I had once an experience where I was in a plant and some group came in to do a run of meat, and they had some real hoity-toity hechsher, and they came in to do the malicha on the meat. So they have a big steel table that they do the malicha on, a big steel table with holes in it, and it's got a frame built around the side, and they take salt and they put salt down on the bottom, and they take the pieces of meat, they put it in, and then the mashgiach takes the salt and he sprinkles the salt, all over it, and then it stays in there. It stays in there, with the salt. So he's doing malicha for this group, and there's this 21, 22-year-old guy standing over there, and he says, "What? That's the way you do malicha? That's not good." So the guy says, "How do you want me to do the malicha?" So he says, "I'll show you." So he takes a piece of meat, and he puts his hands in the salt, and he packs salt all over every little spot on the meat, packing it full of salt. So the mashgiach looks at him and says, "That's the way you want us to do the malicha?" So he says, "Yes." He says, "No problem. You're a paying customer. The customer's always right. That's the way you want it done. That's the way we'll do it." He says, "Just give me a minute." He goes to the phone and he calls the owner. So the owner comes in and he shows him, he says, "This is the way they want me to do the malicha." So he looks at the guy, he says, "Listen, you want us to do the malicha that way, we'll do it, but I'm charging you triple." He says, "Yeah, I mean, you're using all of that salt and all of that time, and we got to wash it off. Your business. So and then he had some choice words for him. I think you're a lunatic, but So then the owner walks away. Then this mashgiach who was doing the malicha was a 60-year-old something yid who's been a mashgiach for the OU for decades, and he's a Talmid Chacham. He looked at the guy and he says, "I just want to ask you one question." So he says, "What?" He says, "Which Siman in Shulchan Aruch does it say that this is the way you're supposed to do malicha?" I'm not even asking you which Seif. Just tell me which Siman. I don't know. Do you know which Siman in Shulchan Aruch talks about malicha? So where are you coming from? Well, this is what I was told. He says, "Well, I could tell you that Siman so and so and Seif so and so. It says that this is the way you do it. This is the way I've been doing it for decades because that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch." So afterwards, I commented. I said, "This is why in many places this is what the Mishnah Berurah says."
You witnessed that?
Yeah, I was standing there. So the Mishnah Berurah says that you should have the nachay lahamid eitzel hagola bal Torah habaki b'deinei hagola. You should have somebody standing there who knows what he's talking about, not somebody who's standing there who doesn't have a clue. Sai lekula, sai lechumra. The guy's clueless. All right, weiter. Now we go back up to by me it's on the second line, back to the words of the Mechaber after the Ramah. So another potential problem. He says if you're kashering after the Zman Isser, you can't throw the keli into the pot until the water is boiling. Let's stop there. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah's cut test. If you're doing the Hagala after the Zman Isser chametz, you shouldn't throw a keli into the pot where you're doing Hagala before the water is boiling. Even if you're going to leave the keli in the pot after the water starts to boil. Why? If you're doing Hagala on lots of keilim, so you threw 5 chametz sticky keilim into the big pot, the water was boiling, the blias came out of those chametz sticky keilim, now it's in the water. Now the water stops boiling. Now you take another spoon and you throw it in before the water starts to boil again. Even if you're going to leave it there after the water starts to boil again, so you'll say, what's the problem? When the water starts to boil again, whatever it was balea is going to come out. So what's the problem? Says the Mishnah Berurah in the brackets here, even though these blias that the keli was just by Leah, l'chayra are not a problem, because when the water starts to boil it again, those blias will go out. Mikamakam lechatchila ein kedai lehoisif ba blias chametz. Lechatchila, we don't want you after the Zman Isser to add chametz stick of blias to a keli. You have a spoon, a chametz stick of spoon, it has chametz stick of blias in it. But now you're throwing it into a pot that has more chametz stick of blias in it, and the water is not boiling. And now this spoon is going to absorb more chametz stick of blias. Lechatchila, he says, you shouldn't do that after the Zman Isser. Doesn't say why, but he says that lechatchila, you shouldn't do that. Ma'ashein kein a magal keilim Zman Isurai, but if you're doing the Hagala before the Zman Isser, ein lachash lazeh, not a problem. Okay. Says the Mechaber weiter. Second line.
Part of Bli is spiritual.
No.
It's physical.
No. All physical. This is not a Tomatara thing. This is physical. Says the Mechaber weiter. V'chein kidei shelo yitztarech lahagil hayoyra hagadola shemagilim ba'tchilu v'seif. Another reason why we want you to do a Hagala before the Zman Isser is because if you're doing the Hagala after the Zman Isser, you can't do the Hagala in a chametz stick pot. You have to do the Hagala in a pot that you're going to kasher first. If you don't have a Pesach stick pot and to do Hagala in, you don't have a pot big enough, right? So now you're going to have to take a pot and you're going to have to do a Hagala on the pot before you could do a Hagala on the keilim. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. He's cutting yud. Kedei shelo yitztarach. Mitzayin leimer. What the Mechar wants to say is like this: Dem yagelach is man iser. If you're doing hagala after this man iser, tzarich lahagel mitchila hayoyra shemagel ba keilim. First, you got to take the big pot that you want to use, which is a chametz sticker pot. You have to do hagala on that pot. V'yishpoich mei hagala lechutz, and pour that hagala out. V'yarsiach b'mayim acherim, and now boil up new water in that pot. V'yachdis b'soicha es keilim, and throw the keilim that you want to do hagala on into that pot. Why? What's the explanation of this? Shim lo yagila mitchila. Let's say you take a chametz sticker pot, and you don't do hagala on the chametz sticker pot first. So now it's after the zman iser. You're taking a chametz sticker pot and you're boiling up water in this chametz sticker pot in order to do hagala in it. Harei hamayim shebeyoyra, the water that's in the pot, ne'esarim machmas hayoyra, but that water is chametz now. You just boiled up a pot of water in a chametz sticker pot. Now, the water in the pot does not have shishim in it to be mevatel the chametz sticker blias that are coming out of the walls of the pot. Because we always said that the rule of thumb is that a pot does not contain shishim keneged its blias. So you take a chametz sticker pot, erev Pesach in the afternoon after the zman hissa, you fill it up with water, you boil it. There's chametz sticker blias now in that water, and it's not bottled. So what are you going to do? So in Nesarin Machmas Ayori Shein Mamayim Shishikin and Kalayora. And now if you throw spoons in it to kasher them, the Chayzer and Amayim and Nesarin, you're throwing it into chametz sticker water, V'Yisra and Keilim and Nigalim B'Seichai. And it's just going to put more chametz sticker blias into the spoons that you're throwing into the pot. So what do you got to do? What you got to do is, you got to take the pot that you want to do hagala on, and you have to put it into a big Pesach sticker pot that you could do hagala. So now you kasher the big pot, and you pour out the water from that hagala, you fill it up with clean water, and you boil up clean water in it. Now you could do hagala. The gamba Seif, and also, if you're using a pot after the zman iser, so now let's say you have a Pesach sticker pot, but you're doing hagala after the zman iser, so now what happens? You throw spoons into the pot to kasher it. The chametz sticker blias come out of the spoons and they go into the pot. And you don't have shishim in the pot keneged those blias. If you don't have shishim keneged those blias, so now after you do the kashering, you have to kasher the big pot. V'gam b'soif lachar hagalos kol keilim. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you're V'gam b'soif lachar hagalos kol keilim kisharoitza lishtamish b'hayoyra tzarich lahagila sheini shetaflet me'agola nivlon b'soicha. Yeah, you have to kasher the pot. If you're doing hagala after this zman iser, you're going to have to kasher the pot that you used to do the hagala. Yeah, you're going to have to kasher that pot because it had chametz sticker blias in it, and those chametz sticker blias are going to go into the walls of the pot. So you have to do that.
What do you mean? If he wants to use it for chumash, it's not a problem.
No, if you want to use it for Pesach.
You want to use it for Pesach.
Or if he only uses it for kashering.
Right, no, he's going to say that. But if you're doing this before the zman iser, you don't have to kasher the pot before. You could take any chametz sticker pot and you could do hagol in it. What's the problem? If you want to do hagala a week before Pesach, so you take a chametz sticker pot, right? You fill it up with water, you throw your keilim in. What are you worried about now? You're worried that the chametz sticker pot is going to put chametz sticker blias into the water, and then that water is going to put the blias into the keilim. That's okay. That's not parnat terror, so it's not a problem.
Could you explain it? I'm sorry. I'm having a difficult time with this. Before, let's say you have a fleischer decker pot, okay? And you go ahead and you cook cream of mushroom soup in it. It's treif. Why? Because the content of the blias of the pot is more than shishim of the dairy that you're going to be cooking this cream of mushroom soup, right?
Is less than
it's more than shishim.
Right. You don't have shishim. You don't have shishim keneged the blias. Right. So it's not puzzle.
But when it comes to chametz, you can take a chametz sticker pot which even if you fill it up to the top and you're boiling, I'm not talking about boiling over, but you fill it up almost to the top. And
Your case is not nice and tam bar nice and tam de terra. In your case, when you put dairy into a fleshika pot, and now the fleshika blias come out of the pot and go into the dairy dish, you have basa b'chalav. That's isura.
And treif will be the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
that's isura. Sure.
So, because chametz is not because
chametz
before Pesach,
right? Chametz before Pesach,
but it's still chametz that's going to be.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. No, don't hold that thought, because according to many shittas, you're right, and according to the way we know you're right. So hold that thought. Not a bad thought at all. Okay. V'rak im roitza lehishtamish b'hayoyra la'achas maniser tzar she'agilena b'seif. Chavetz Chaim does say, if you want to use the pot that you did the kashering, even if you kashered before the Zman of Isser, if now you want to take that pot that you used for kashering and you want to use that pot on Pesach, he says you would have to do Hagala on that pot, because that pot has chametz tika blias in it.
And you would need one heck of a big pot in order for it to be shishin.
Yeah, you would need a big pot to kasher that in. Yeah. Just 1 second.
Oh, you said it just overflowed.
Yeah. On the stone. A hot stone. Stone. Yeah.
Ritzel hishtamish b'hayoyra la'achas man iser tzar she'agilena b'seif, because it has blias.
Yeah, does anybody do it?
Okay.
Have it in the place.
Now we go weiter. Let's see the Ramah. Haga, the third line down. So now the Mechaber just finished telling you all the reasons why you should do Hagala before the Zman of Isser. Now what happens if you didn't? Haga. If you didn't do Hagala before the Zman of Isser, Yachal Hagel ad HaPesach. You could do Hagala all the way up until Pesach. Now right away, let's see in the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Kat Yud Aleph, ad HaPesach. You could do Hagala until Pesach. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Mishum Chalamayid Hutzrich L'tam Zeh. When the Ramah is telling you that you could do it until Pesach, but you can't do it on Pesach, he's telling you that you can't do Hagala on Pesach because you can't do Hagala on Chalamayid. But as far as doing Chalamayid on doing Hagala on Yom Tov, says the Chavetz Chaim, Dilu b'Yom Tov atzmai. As far as doing Hagala on Yom Tov itself, Afilu b'Shar Yom Tov asa lahagil. You're never allowed to do Hagala on a Yom Tov. Doesn't matter what Yom Tov. No, interesting. That was my first reaction also. Kidlakaman b'Siman Tavkuf Tesif. Hey, we're over there. What it says is you can't do Hagala on Yom Tov because the boiling of the water is not considered Eichel Nefesh. That's not cooking that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov, because it's something that's Efshalah Soisai before Yom Tov. You could have done the Hagala before Yom Tov. He says if it's a case where you couldn't do the Hagala before Yom Tov Me'ezatam, then maybe you could. We'll get to it when we see it there. Okay. Now, continues the Ramah. So the Ramah says, V'im lo yigel kaidim zman yisur yachal hagel ad HaPesach, she'az chametz b'mashehu ve'enay moyel Hagala. So why can't you do Hagala, let's say, on Chalamayid Pesach? Because what is it going to accomplish? On Pesach, Chametz is also b'mashehu. So what's going to happen? You're going to get the blias to come out of the keilim, trying to kasher. Now it's going to be in the water, shechayzer b'leia. It's going to be re-b'leia, that mashu of Chametz that's in there, and now it's isura bala. Now it's all Isser that you're talking about, and it's also b'mashu. So now it's not going to work. But to do libun, you could do libun on Pesach, because libun doesn't even leave a mashahu of tam. Libun doesn't leave anything. Libun burns up everything.
But how are you able to touch that item, whatever it is, a fork, let's just say?
You're not touching.
Mashahu in it.
There's no chametz be'en. The issue of touching chametz is like chametz be'en, not on tam. There's no, the issue of touching chametz is because Shem Yavala Achlai. We're afraid you're going to come to eat it. That's the chametz ban. Ukishamagel.
You take it out with tongues anyway. Don't use tongues to take the stuff out of it.
Yeah, but you don't need tongues to throw it in.
Right.
He's just asking why you're allowed to touch it. We said you're not allowed to touch chametz on Pesach. Ukishamagel kaida Pesach lacha sheish. If you're doing Hagala before Pesach, but after the 6th hour, the chametz is aser. Tzarich lizar b'chal advarim aniskarim. You would have to be careful from this whole list that we said that you don't have to be careful of if you do it before the Zman Iser. Shein tzarich lizar ben keilim sheish. All of these things that you don't have to be nizar. If you do it before the Zman Iser, you have to be nizar from all of these things if you do it after the Zman Iser. Now the Mishnah Berurah says over here in Eis Yud Gimel, Yud Beis. Sha'al's chametz b'mashu. Hagol is not going to work on Yom Tov because then chametz is also b'mashu. Ritzayna Loimar, what he means to say is, Veina moyel afim yirtzal hagila b'sach kli gadol sheish pashishim b'meimel neged ha'kli levatel ha'plita. Now what are you going to do? You want to do Hagala, and you'll use a big pot that has shishim keneged the fork. So you have a chametz stick of fork, you're going to throw it in to do Hagala in a big pot, and you have shishim of the water connected the blias that are going to come out of the fork. So you're not worried about the fork being ribaylea. It's not going to work. It's not bottle. It's also b'mashu. So the blias that come out of the fork, they're not bottle, and now it's going to be ribaylea. As soon as the fork finishes giving out its blias, it's going to be ribaylea. And it's going to be ribaylea that mashu, it's going to be aser. V'av sha'akli eina ben yomoy. Let's say the keilim that you're trying to kasher is not a ben yoimai, so it's nice tam of gam. The gam a kliya gadol ain't a ben yoimai, and the pot that you're kashering isn't any ben yoimai. Afilo hachi aser. Still, according to us, this is going to be aser. Afilo hachi aser l'didan. The kaimelon b'sim in Taf Mem Zayin Sif Yud. We learned previously in Taf Mem Zayin lahachmer b'Pesach af b'nois tam of gam. We're machmer even on nois tam of gam. So it's not going to help you that everything is nois tam of gam. All of this doesn't get you anywhere. I said Gimel, La'achar Sheish. I was surprised nobody jumped when I read this. The language of the Ramah over here is that all of these problems come into play if you're kashering after the 6th hour. But if you're kashering before the 6th hour, you don't have these problems. 6th hour.
What happened to the 5th?
Right, what happened to the 5th hour? We said all the way in the beginning that all of these problems come into play after 4 hours when chametz is also midrabanan. Because once it's also midrabanan, we call it isur bala. So why suddenly is the Ramah saying sheish? So it says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Yud Gimel lav dafka. When the Ramah says lacha sheish, lav dafka. Daf lacha arba tzarich lizar. Even in the 5th hour, you have to be careful at all of these things. The chanal b'sif katan beis, like we said in sif katan beis. Kain kasvu kama achrayim. That's what most of the achrayim say. Elisha kasvu, but they write to be mitaritz to Ramah. The masha kasav Ramah the tzarich lizar b'chal advarim lav b'dafka. That when the Ramah says that you have to be careful of all of these things, that's also lav dafka. The medina daim arba shayis ad alayla. That there's a difference between after the 4th hour, and until the night. That we said chametz is not also b'mashu until Yom Tov begins. So therefore, from the 4th hour into the night, there is a difference where you only have to do one of the two things that we're going to say you have to do after the Zman Iser. Some say that you know why the Ramah said 6th hour. Because then you have to be careful of everything. But between the 4th and the 6th, you only need to do one trick. What are these two things? There are two options that we said at the beginning of the Siman that takes you away from all of these problems. One, that the keilim that you're kashering, as well as the pot that you're doing the kashering in, neither one of them should be a ben yoimai. That's the first thing. The first way to get out of all of these problems is make sure that whatever you're using, it's not a ben yoimai. Now, how does that help you? Why does that help you? So the reason why that helps you is you have to understand well the difference in halacha between a ben yoimai and not a ben yoimai. Really, when we say that tam is aser, it's only noisid tam l'shvach. When is tam aser? Only if the tam that we're worried about is going to infuse the food that you're cooking with a positive tam. So if you're worried about tam chametz, when is tam chametz or tam nevela, whatever it is, when is that a problem? When it's going to benefit you. But when that tam is going to be problematic, when you actually don't want that tam because it's not good tam, then the tam iser is not a problem. Why is it a tam iser? Because we're not makshav it. We don't want it. Adarab, it's bad for us. We don't want that tam. So then that tam, we don't worry about that tam. We only worry about tam l'shvach, not tam of gam. Oh, so why are we makbid on tam of gam? The reason we're makbid on tam of gam, Taisus and Chulun says, is a gzera otu tam shvach. If we're going to let you use something that's tam of gam, you might come to use something that's tam l'shvach. Therefore, we're makbid, and we say that no, even tam of gam is a problem. Now, that's only a problem. There's only room for gzera when the pot was baileya something that was noisid tam l'shvach. But if it was never noisid tam l'shvach, then there's no room for gzera. So if you have a big pot that's not a ben yoimai, and the big pot that's not a ben yoimai has blias of chametz in it, and now I take a fork that I want to kasher, and I throw it into the big pot to kasher it, right? The tam that the fork might possibly be baileya, right? When it's baileya, it's only nice and tam l'vgam. It was never nice and tam l'shvach. So over there's no room for gzera of nice and tam l'vgam or to nice and tam l'shvach. So one way to get rid of all of these problems is make sure that everything you're dealing with is nice and tam l'vgam. If everything is nice and tam l'vgam, so what are you worried about? Let's say one of the first problems that we had over here, right? He says you're going to do hagala, you're going to throw a fork into the pot, and you're going to leave it in the pot too long. So what's going to happen if you leave it in the pot too long? The blias are going to go out, and then the blias are going to come back in. Okay, what are those blias? Those blias are nice and tam l'vgam blias. So if my initial blia is nice and tam l'vgam, over there's no room for gzera nice and tam l'vgam or to nice and tam l'shvach. The first time I was baleya, there was already nice and tam l'vgam. So that's why the first way to get rid of all of these problems is make sure that the big pot that you're doing the kashering in and the thing that you're kashering, make sure everything is nice and tam l'vgam. If everything is an eina ben yoima, you don't have a problem. Now we're going to stop over here, but we'll see that everything that we said is really academic, because the Berurah is going to say we don't paskin like this. We paskin that everything has to be not a ben yoimai. You can't kasher anything even before the Zman Isser. You can only kasher it if it's an eina ben yoimai, and the pot you're kashering in has to be an eina ben yoimai. So we'll get to that tomorrow.